Welcome back to It's an Inside Job podcast. I'm your host, Jason Lim, and this podcast is dedicated to helping you to help yourself and others to become more mentally and emotionally resilient so you can be better at bouncing back from life's inevitable setbacks. Now, on It's an Inside Job, we decode the science and the stories of resilience into practical advice, skills, and strategies that you can use to impact your life and those around you. Now, thanks for spending some time with me today. With that said, let's start. Well, welcome back. This week, I'd like to address one of the major causes of overthinking and rumination. Now, if we can understand the cause, then we are better tuned to actually turn off overthinking. We can understand what triggers us to go into an not such productive mindset. Now, one of the things that the brain needs is the sense of certainty. Now, it's natural that the brain runs to certainty because in certainty we find safety and security. But there is a certain paradox to certainty, and it's this paradox or this relationship we have with certainty that I want to address this week. When we feel our lives are inside out or upside down, we crave certainty. There's an inner urge for us to acquire a richer, more detailed map of the terrain that we're walking through. The clearer the map, the more confident we are to make decisions to move forward into the landscape, to migrate into the territory. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, the human drive to increase certainty meant a greater chance of survival. It meant, as we've talked about, security and safety. Uncertainty was where danger and potentially death lurked. Now, from a modern perspective, especially if you live in the West, life-threatening instances are far and few between. Still, this does not dampen this innate urge we have to seek the shelter of certainty. Now, consider for a moment a person who you know is successful. Perhaps you yourself come to mind. Now, when you started out in your chosen career or direction in life, the road was littered with question marks of all sizes. Now, although it all seemed daunting you as you pushed forward into uncertainty, self-doubt seeped into your thinking. It's only natural. But you pushed it aside and moved forward. Whether it was in college, your first job, your first startup, I don't know. But you have embraced uncertainty to some level. You pushed aside certainty in order to grow and develop. Now, to achieve a level of success, a person needs to venture outside of their comfort zone. We know this. We've come to an agreement with ourselves that to develop and to grow, we need to sacrifice a degree of certainty and to embrace a level of risk. Now, I want to spend a moment to talk about achieving success. There comes a point in any successful person's life where they can look at their to-do list and they can check off most of the goals that they had set for themselves. Perhaps it's a level of income, I don't know, a rank in the organization, a feeling of, complete autonomy and independence. Maybe they're a part of a club or elite group they've been trying to get into for the longest time. Now they are a member of that clique. They may have purchased the home, their dream home in the dream neighborhood. They've got all of it. When he or she reaches those goals, the road ahead of them is going to seem so much more certain because everything is in place. Especially if you compare it to where they started on that road. It's so clear that maybe they can see the road stretching kilometers and years ahead of them, and they have that sense of certainty. So that begs the question. So let's take someone who's worked for the same organization for 15, 20, 25 years, maybe even longer. What do you think the odds that he or she will move on to another company? What if someone has toiled so many years to gain experience and knowledge? How likely is he or she to jump ship, and actually try something new? Now, when I talk to a lot of clients that have been in the game, in the same routine, in the same company for so long, the likelihood of them actually jumping ship, as we've talked about, is highly unlikely. But here's the thing. When I talk to clients who've been in a certain position for so long, they have this mixture of emotions, where they feel it's a certain routine. There's no more the passion or the excitement that they once had. It's more dispassion and boredom. But at the other hand, there's that certainty of having a steady income. They've spent so many years, so much time and effort that they're intimately equated with all the responsibilities and the defined roles of their position. The question is, once any of us get there, do we want to give up all that certainty? The brain generally saying, no, why would you do that? Unless I'm cognizant of setting new goals, I'll grow comfortable in the certainty that I've achieved or that you have achieved. My hunger for growing and learning and exploring, it will dissipate and I'll grow more and more complacent. I will opt for certainty over uncertainty. In other words, we settle. I've settled because of my success. We stay locked behind the confines of certainty that we've built for ourselves. And the whole reason we stay behind those walls, it's to stave off uncertainty. Uncertainty is the wilderness. And the brain doesn't want to go there, and neither do I. I or you or anyone who's built success over the years, we built these walls that are tall and strong, and we fear anything outside of the perimeter of those walls. This is the modern paradox of certainty, I think. And that's why I want to call this the paradox of certainty. The drive that once kept us alive can be the very same thing, the same drive that keeps us from living. Growth is all about uncertainty, as is development, as is exploration, as is discovery. Abraham Maslow once said, you will either step forward into growth or you will step back into safety. Now, let's use a little example here. Think about it's a cold winter morning and you're just getting up and it's so warm under the blankets, and putting your feet on a cold floor really does not have any appeal. And so one part of your brain is saying, stay comfort, stay in the certainty, stay under these blankets. But then there's another part of you that is starting to get restless and wants to jump out of bed and face the day. But there's this debate between the certainty of staying under the blanket and uncertainty of jumping out of the bed and facing the day. This is sometimes where we're at, the comfort of staying with certainty or the discomfort of moving into uncertainty. Let's look at uncertainty for a second. Uncertainty, it is the domain of new experiences. As I said, it's like growth and development. It is the home of opportunity and possibilities. And it's the space in which we can explore and learn and evolve to become better at something or to learn something new. Uncertainty, it's all about the future. It's about moving further down unexplored roads. And if we talked about traveling companions on this unexplored road, that would be discovery and curiosity. Now, if we look at the other hand, certainty, what is certainty? It's all about things that we've already done, things that we've already learned, knowledge that we have already gained and mastered. There is no more learning when certainty is concerned. We are stuck traveling, back and forth on the same old neighborhood roads. The same familiar routes. Instead of discovering new roads or new routes, we choose to stick to the old neighborhood. Our travel companions in this case become routine and complacency. The conversations we have are all about the good old days, the things that we used to do. After a time, those discussions will become very tiresome and stale. And if we stay in certainty too long, what happens? As we've already explored, we become bored. We feel the sense of restlessness to get up and go, just like under those blankets. Boredom is a good feeling because it's that restlessness is saying, hey, Jason, address what's going on in your environment. If it is something simple as sitting on a park bench for too long, that's easy. That's easy to get up and go. Let's go strolling. But life is not so simple. That is clear for all of us. We know how complex life is. Because the boredom may be with a relationship. Maybe it's with our job, our position. Maybe it's with a sense of health or a well-being. But irrespective of how simple or complex a thing is, there's still that urge that nudges us to do something about it, that boredom, that restlessness. But the thing is, the longer we wait, the the stronger that feeling will get. And that can stress us out. Boredom can stress us out unless we do something about it. If I can put it this way, think about this. Every morning, this urge, it kind of diligently knocks on your door and encourages you to come out and play. But it's just a gentle knock. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, why don't you come on out? Let's go learn. Let's explore. Let's grow. But we've become so accustomed to ignoring those knocks and pretending we aren't at home. We tell ourselves that, this urge, it will come back tomorrow. It'll come back tomorrow morning, and then I'll answer the door. And we keep doing this time and time again, day after day, month after month, year after year. We've become so complacent with our certainty and our success that one morning we're expecting a knock, but there's no knocks anymore. Too many years have gone by. And in some cases, it's just too late. We're left sitting behind the safety of that locked door. And the only thing we have as companions are regrets. And that kind of resounds in our ear. What if I had done that? Why didn't I take the chance when I had the chance? Timing is not everything. Have you ever found yourself kind of putting things off to another day where you're just kind of procrastinating? You're finding excuses to push off action till tomorrow. It could be anything. I've heard the whole gamut. I'll be in a better mood. My energy levels will be better. I'll have more time tomorrow. I don't have so much to do. Myself, this is including myself, not just my clients. This is every human being that I've ever known. We're constantly trawling our minds for any excuse to justify our inactions and to put the action on to tomorrow. If we're waiting for the right moment to present itself, then I think we're going to be waiting a long time. From my experience, and I've been doing this for a while, from my own experience and working with clients, of course, the odds of the right moment showing up is pretty much astronomical in most cases. So sometimes what we need to do is to be bold, is to choose to create the moment in which we want to act. Our thoughts and actions may not always align. We may feel this sort of internal clash between, staying put and moving forward. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's just what we've been talking about. It's staying put means staying with certainty, where there's no learning, or moving forward and embracing some level of uncertainty so we can grow, learn, and develop. So in this case, as I said, this means we need to be bold and we need to make a choice. It's not about hedging our bets anymore. Maybe we're tired of that. Maybe it's time to decide, I gotta move forward. We're going to have to make trade-offs, and it's not always going to feel comfortable. And more likely, it's going to feel awkward and uncomfortable. We can wish all we want that circumstances were different. We can have that wishful thinking. And the situation may be far from ideal, but it is the reality that you or I may be facing. This is how the cards are played out. What are we going to do with that hand? What's typical for us human beings that we can create a drama in our head that the situation is not fair, and we can whine and moan and whinge about it. And yes, maybe it is unfair, and that's how it's played out. But the situation is what the situation is. The question is, what are you or I or any of us willing to do about it? And so I want to jump on that word willing, because I think that's so important. Because there's wanting something versus willing, what you're willing to do. And there is a big difference between wanting and willing. Well, let's look at a few questions to see the difference between willing and wanting. A person may want a new career, but the question is, are they willing to go back to school to get the needed qualifications, to get the education? Maybe someone wants a higher salary, but are they willing to take up that conversation, that difficult conversation with their boss? A person may want to start their own business. They want to be an entrepreneur, but the question is, are they willing to accept the risk and strive for it? Maybe someone wants a promotion at work, But are they willing, just like the salary, are they willing to get up and to be bold, to ask for it? What I'm about to propose may seem quite controversial, but what it is actually the plain truth. The reason people feel stuck where they are is because they've not made the choice to change their circumstances. They get stuck with where they are at. People get stuck for a long period and still talk about wanting to change. For me, at some level, they like where they are. Deep down, they really don't want to change. It's more of just talking about it and not actually doing anything about it. They're only paying tribute to the idea of moving on. Because if someone really, really wanted to change their life, don't you think they would have done something about it? Again, from experience, I can confidently say yes to this. I've worked with people for over, 2 decades across cultures, genders, social hierarchies, whatever variable you want to use. Those who really desire change act on those desires. Their actions may be small and incremental. For us, it may seem like nothing, but for them, it may be large steps. But they're steps forward, regardless how big or how small they are. People who do something about their lot in life, they accept there's a degree of risk and move into uncertainty, even when the trepidation and, they still feel the trepidation and they have the doubt, but they still move forward. Isn't that what courage is at the end of the day? It's not being 100% brave. It's about facing up to our fears and then walking into those fears, having that courage to move forward, to change our lot, to change our circumstances. I call them bold individuals, and these bold individuals, they give up their how can I say, their crutches about their social background or upbringing or their disabilities or their disadvantages or their history. They don't use those excuses to play victim. They understand that. They accept that part of their past. But they use it in a way to build them. They don't use it as a way as an anchor to hold them back. They understand their circumstances are far from ideal. But at the same time, yet they choose to act and deal with their current reality to improve their life situation. They don't ask themselves what they want or what they don't want. Rather, they ask what they are willing or not willing to accept anymore. When we ask and answer, these kind of questions, our true desires and goals come to light. They come to fruition. They become crystallized in our mind's eye, per se. It becomes so much easier then to make the choices to move in the right directions. They no longer use it as an excuse. The question is, they ask themselves, what am I willing to move forward to? And what am I not willing to put up with anymore? Now, I want you to take a moment. I want you to think about someone you respect. Maybe it was a former teacher or professor or mentor. Maybe it was one of your parents. Maybe it was a friend, an uncle, an aunt. Maybe it was a former boss or your current boss.
Welcome to Practical Wisdom for Leaders, the podcast where we help you become a great leader. I'm Dr. Scott Allen, and each week I engage with world leaders, senior executives, nonprofit trailblazers, and professors from universities around the globe. We explore all aspects of leadership: executive development, personal growth, bad leadership, women in leadership, decision-making, and so much more. Tune into Practical Wisdom for Leaders for critical insights to help you lead and live with purpose.
Maybe it's a historical figure, but I want you to put that person in your mind's eye and then ask yourself, why is it that you respect them? Now, I ask my clients this question a lot. Who do they respect, and why is it you respect them? A lot of the times, the answer will be something along the lines of, well, you know what? He or she has achieved this. It's what they managed to accomplish. It's what they did. It could be some sort of answer along these lines. Our respect for people is defined by what they did and not about what they were thinking of doing. It's that gap between the thinking of doing and the doing that separates the bold from those who want to be bold. At least in my eyes. We tend to respect those people because they have chosen to act on their thoughts. They acted to move into uncertainty and to face the risk. Maybe it wasn't to just jump into the uncertainty. Maybe it was a certain calculated risk. But the question is that they moved into that risk. They decided I want to learn. They chose to learn. They chose to grow and develop, which meant they were willing, again, there's that word again, willing to accept falling down, messing up, failing, making mistakes. When we look to those people we respect, we wish we had the same courage and the confidence to move into uncertainty to achieve what they have achieved. But the truth is, they were also plagued by thoughts of doubt and uncertainty, just like you and me. They are human beings, just like you and me. Their brains generated negative thoughts and rumination and overthinking. Their brains try to convince them to stay in their comfort zone and not to stretch. That's the nature of our brains. As we've talked about before, the brain is like any other organ. The heart pumps blood, the lungs pump oxygen, the brain pumps survival. And part of survival means staying where it's certain. Why? Because in certainty, I know this part of the jungle. I know where the food is. I know where the dangerous animals are. I know where the water sources are. But this part of the jungle smells, and it smells bad. I don't like it here, but it's certainty. And that's where the brain wants to keep you. And so those people that we respect, those people that we see successful, what did they do? I can guarantee you that they had their doubts, they had their uncertainties, they had their negative thought spirals. But they put that down and they were willing to stretch. The big difference is that these people that we respect, they learned not to entertain every bloody negative thought that popped into their heads. What they did, they took ownership of their dysfunctional thinking and they learned to ignore it. They put it on the back burner. I'm quite sure for many of them, that was a hard-earned lesson. And again, I speak from experience and I work with a lot of people that have achieved a lot. And I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that they are plagued with uncertainty and doubt, and they have to tackle rumination and overthinking just like any other person. But that kind of insight is something that has to be experienced multiple of times before it begins to sink in. Because logically, I know you all accept that, but the question is, emotionally, do you accept it? Because at the end of the day, it's not that logic that sways behavior, it's emotions that sway behavior. Reality is shaped not by our thoughts, but by our actions. We become who we are by the actions that we take. We are defined by what we do. Cognitive behavioral psychology has two premises. One premise is that we can change our behavior by changing our thoughts. And the other premise is that we can change our thoughts by changing our behavior. I found that the latter to be advantageous when a client is sort of stubbornly entrenched in a certain way of thinking. Sometimes intellectualizing a solution leads to nowhere. It just becomes an act of futility in my eyes. The conversation is just circular, and you end up right back where you started. This is when experience becomes the best teacher. It's in the act of doing that we learn what works and what doesn't. In the outcome, the outcome of an action that leads us to question the validity of what? Of our thoughts. And from there, we can grow more confident. Experience allows us to learn and to reassess our beliefs. What is doable and what actually isn't doable. It helps us to see the gap between how we think life should be and how it actually is. When we are cognizant, when we're aware and conscious of this gap, we start to think more objectively about our relationships with what? With certainty and uncertainty. We all need a sense of certainty in our lives. There is no denying that. And the last thing I'm saying is to go blindly and give up everything and just jump in on uncertainty. Certainty, it does provide a sense of stability and consistency that we all need. Certainty does grant us a level of what? Clarity. And this clarity in turn leads to confidence. As our confidence surges, it becomes like a springboard that launches us to extend our reach into new areas to explore. So certainty is definitely the launching pad that we need to build in order to put our rockets on our shuttle. It provides us with the impetus to move from thinking about doing something to actually doing something. By pushing the boundaries of it doesn't matter, whatever you want to say, our skills, our knowledge, our experience, we grow, learn, and develop. We explore. We evolve as individuals, professionally and privately. As I stated earlier, if we're not aware of the overpowering allure of certainty, then you know what it does? It leads us to live lives of stagnation. We stay behind the walls that we've built. We become so enamored with the idea of safety and security that we literally retreat behind the fortified walls that we've built of certainty. And then what happens? We slowly stagnate. We slowly die. We grow complacent. We become settled in our ways. When we convince ourselves to fear uncertainty, our unfounded biases harden. We go through the same tired motions as our days fade away, as they tick away. And the thing is, we forget the opportunity and possibility actually just lies beyond those gates of certainty that we've bolted and locked. Unless we awaken ourselves to the paradox of certainty, that drive that once kept us alive will become the same very drive that keeps us from living. With everything I've talked about today in that relationship we have with certainty and uncertainty, where the brain actually likes to be seated is navigating that tension between certainty and uncertainty. We need certainty, a level of certainty to feel stable and secure, but we don't want to become too complacent with that feeling. We want to jump into the pilot seat of our mind. What does that mean? The pilot seat means we're aware of our thinking, our emotions, our behavior, and our physical sensations. When we get into the pilot seat of our mind, then we can trigger the language of to be willing to do something, willing to grow, willing to learn, and to embrace uncertainty. And so in a future episode, I want to speak more to the neurobiology, to the neuropsychology of what it means to embrace learning. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode this week. Until next time, keep well, keep strong, and we'll speak soon.